There we go. Popped on. Good to go. We are live. Right on. Give it a minute to make sure everything is squared up. All right. Okay. All looks good. So set and ready to go. Greetings and salutations, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome once again to the Storyteller's Corner. I'm your host, Joshua T. Calkins Truridge, also known as Byron Sidious. And this is another installment of Break Time Story Time here with yours truly. And we already got a chat. Here we go. Sarge, dear Sarge, good to see you, brother. Thank you for popping in. Hope that the audio is coming through clear for you this time. And I'm not going to be scanning away to check other messages, either text or from Facebook Messenger or wherever, because the third installment of these break time story times unfortunately had a little bit of a kerfuffle, a snafu, because I use my cell phone to use the Rumble Creator Studio app while I'm on the go. If you click away from the creator window, the Rumble logo comes up on screen, and it cuts out the audio, cuts out video until such time as you come back. And it comes back during the live feed. But as myself and Sarge discovered by trying to view the playback, later on, once the live stream has been archived on Rumble and or YouTube or wherever else you are dual streaming to through the Rumble Studio app, if you're using it on mobile and you click away on the archived video, it doesn't come back. In other words, anyone who was not watching live will have missed anything and everything and be cut off from whatever came after the point where you happened to navigate away. It's unfortunate, but it's part of the learning process. Now I know I won't do that again. I won't risk that again. Particularly when... What the hell? What happened? Did I lose my connection? If you can still hear me, let me know in the chat. What happened? Am I still on? I just got the button prompt to end the stream as though... Okay. Something went glitchy there. That was weird. All right. Growing pains. Oof, okay. So anyway, point being, I'm learning. I'm figuring this whole thing out as I go, and hopefully I won't have another kerfuffle or snafu like that anytime in the near future. But anyhow, I am now going to proceed forward from where we left off last time. We are picking up with and continuing on with the presentation of A Midwestern Yankee in King Ovin's Court, a fantasy novel written by yours truly, Joshua T. Calkins Truridge. This book was first published and released back in 2013. It is still available in its entirety in trade paperback in full paperback form, what's known as not trade paperback, but full paperback form on Amazon, on Barnes & Noble, and other online book retailers such as Kobo Books, Thrift Books, and what have you. But let us proceed now with Chapter 6, Audience with the King. Continuing now. Sorry about that. Let me clear my throat beforehand. Sorry. It took another 2 hours for them to get clear of the hills, and when they did, Kathy stopped dead in her tracks, eyes glued to the city ahead. Yonder lies Seaport, capital of Africa's king, Daguerreau said, sweeping one furry hand towards the magnificent metropolis below. The land swept down abruptly 50 yards on, followed by what Kathy guessed was about 5 miles of open grassland. Hold on one moment. Right now would be rather difficult, Sarge. I don't have any author's copies laying around. I had a few back when I first published this particular book and ended up giving them out to a couple of friends and relatives, so I don't even have my own physical author's copy anymore. I could easily get one, but I have no qualms about if you pick up a copy and you want it signed, I can grant anyone who's interested the mailing information to send it to me. I'll sign off on it and send it on back. That's no qualms. It was difficult to gauge distances in the ether, Kathy found, due to the cleanliness of the air. Still, beyond the grassland sprawled a mighty city, stretching for miles to the east and west, and at least 3 miles from south to north. The capital had been built abutting a mountain range, allowing for a towering city wall to wrap naturally from west end around to east end on the southern front. Yet from this great distance, she could see that there was a second wall within the city itself. It loomed even over the multi-level buildings that she assumed were apartment structures of some sort. Beyond this inner wall, she could just make out what looked like a small mansion and 2 or 3 other buildings. It's beautiful, she said. It is at that, replied Daguerreau. We should take rest and eat something quickly. We've made better time than I anticipated, and I don't want to lose the extra ground that we have covered. He took from his bag several more fruits and what looked like wrapped bowls filled with salted pot roast chunks. Kathy noted that he seemed to have 2 of everything he needed. Yes, he replied, sensing her look. I came prepared in case you agreed to accompany me here. So, besides my awakening, why else am I being brought to the capital? What do you mean? I mean, something doesn't add up, Kathy said, the gears turning in her head. You know what to say, her inner guest said. She was starting to believe that this foreign mental voice belonged to the part of her that Daguerreau referred to as awakened, the part of her soul that he claimed allowed her to access magic. Considering its accuracy, since first piping up in her mind, this hypothesis made the most sense to her. You're a very important man to the order of things in this kingdom of yours, she observed, and you were personally sent to retrieve me. You said yourself that there are other awakened who travel in the aether, and I suspect that the king doesn't have the time to personally greet them all. Daguerreau's eyes quickly lowered to his food. She suspected she knew what that meant, that she was on the right trail, and he didn't want her to see the truth of that in his eyes. You're doing good, said the little voice in her head. Keep going. Boop, boop. Hey-oh, how you doing, Tech? Good to see you, brother. Drop ship it to him? I don't know anything about drop shipping. I might have to prod your brain later on down the road about something along those lines. You also implied that there are things happening here that have to do with what happened to me. Back at my apartment, before I even packed my bag. Something about this, what did you call it? Wildfire, that's it. Daguerreau's eyes were beginning to brighten with that strange orange light again. There's more to this audience with the king than you're telling me. Aye, 'tis so, he replied, on an edge of that twin harmony that accompanied the lights in his eyes. I cannot say to thee what is entailed, for mine first duty as a knight to mine kingdom is to my king. He hath forbade me speak on this yet, and I am thusly bound by thy questions. Forgive me, Lady Cathy, he said, the orange lights fading in his eyes. She made a frustrated noise in her throat. It's not your fault, she groused, pulling grass from the ground and tossing it aside. Suppose I'll find out soon enough. Oh, okay, that's what dropshipping is. Gotcha. Gotcha, Tech. Thank you for the summary there. The outer walls of the city had 3 sets of gates, west, south, and east. The southern gates, being the most frequently used, stood wide open to permit them entrance into the city. Cathy saw all manner of strange and exotic peoples, most of whom Daguerreau quickly gave her the names of. First, there were the elves, the most populous peoples of Faerie. Humanoid in frame, they stood as tall as she, with long pointed ears, slightly slanted eyes, and universally slender frames. Daguerreau explained that most elves never got much bigger than high school swimmers from her world. Their garb reminded her of Renaissance fair players dressed as commoners or peasants. Then there were the owl-like humanoids called Nokthus, and ratmen called Gotrin. The Gotrin, Daguerreau explained, were less common in the daylight hours, and most were natural-born thieves. There were cat people called felins, and they came in as many tribal varieties as the dog-like Kenin did. Bear fairies, lumbering, talking bears, whom Daguerreau said were among the most skilled water magic wielders. He said that they were called ursines. Then she spotted a stout, turtle-like fairy creature as they approached the inner city wall an hour after arriving within the capital. What are they called? She asked in a whisper. Divars, Daguerreau said, taking Cathy by the arm and whisking her along down the side street. Wait a minute. That's one of the words that you used in your titles, isn't it? Santo of Divars, right? Daguerreau rushed her along and nodded. What does Santo mean? It has 2 meanings, Daguerreau said. Saint or savior. I will explain another time, he said. We've no time for it now. The city, what little of it she managed to see in their rush towards the inner city walls, made her think of the towns and the role-playing video games that she saw her brother play when they were younger, on the Super Nintendo or PlayStation. At last, Daguerreau led her down a narrow alley and out onto a broad east-to-west thoroughfare, an immense inner wall before them, broken only by a barbican gate of grated iron. Cathy could just make out a dim, silvery light layered over the iron gate itself, making a faint humming sound. Daguerreau smiled broadly at the gate, finally letting go of Cathy's hand as he approached. His arms held out, palms empty and turned up toward the sky. The orange light of the word of the night blazed from his eyes and mouth, wrapping then around his body. Behold, brothers, 'tis I, Sir Daguerreau, High Knight of Oben's court. I return to thee in good spirits, with mine charge complete, and the Lady Cathy Potts, the human, in company. I beseech thee open the gate, and let us through, that she may meet the king, as is his will and his right, as monarch of Ammermit's kingdom. Kathy watched as a creature of living rock came into view atop the wall. A towering golem with 2 empty sockets for eyes, surrounded by his own aura of orange light. It wore a cloak of the same shade and designs as Daguerreau did, but for reasons obvious, it wore no armor. A belt around its midsection hosted a broad-headed warhammer, though. "Sir Daguerreau, Sir Enridge greets thee," the golem boomed, its voice a rolling thunder. "Thou art seen true, heard true, and, as is thy right, granted entry into the inner court. Be welcome back with merry heart," he boomed, reaching down out of sight. Kathy saw the golem pull on something, and the Barbican gate began to rise. As she followed Daguerreau towards the gap appearing there, she noticed several elves and Kenyan in dark blue suits that reminded her of cops on old British shows moving to block off their section of the street. This is the city watch, she thought, here to keep the riffraff out. Her inner voice said nothing, but she felt its agreement with her estimation of things. She and Daguerreau passed through the archway, and the Barbican gate shut behind them. 3 elven men and a burly, black-furred bear fairy, all wearing armor and cloaks like Daguerreau's, met them a few yards along what looked like a cobblestone footpath into a kind of central town square. The bear saluted, and the 3 elves standing stiffly at attention behind him. "Your lordship, it is well that you are returned to us," said the bear in a soft voice. To Kathy, he sounded almost like a hippie. "The evening approaches, and the king and queen will soon be at sup. I have no new reports to offer at this time." "Very good, Sir Bael," Daguerreau said, snapping off a salute so that Bael could lower his hand. "Any grievances from the councilman while I was away?" "Only from Tovas Karim. He sent one of his personal shoppers into market this morning, where it was discovered that Prima Forge is now employing a Cyclops." Daguerreau scoffed derisively. "By the gods, does Karim not realize that all Faerie are given a chance in the measure of things?" Are you talking about a real Cyclops here?" Kathy interrupted, hand raised a little. Bael and Daguerreau chuckled good-naturedly. "Why, yes, of course, milady," said Bael. Even the elven knights behind him looked a trifle amused at her ignorance. "They're from a different aether plane, mostly, but they're Faerie just like us, all right. So we should give them a chance." Kathy made a mental note to ask about that oddity some other time. A different aether plane? Shouldn't that mean that there were different mortal planes as well? She wondered. How many worlds were connected to this one? "Sir Bael, are any missives inbound from our dispatched royal guard?" Daguerreau asked. "Not as of now, no. Sir Feckley is expected to send a report soon, though, and there's been some ruckus at the main watch station regarding a letter from one of the southern outbound rangers." "See to that letter. Find out if it's in need of my personal attention," Daguerreau said. "Aye, my lord," replied the bear fairy, heading past them with the elves to the gate. Kathy tapped Daguerreau on the shoulder. "Royal Guard?" "Yes, they were," said Daguerreau. "Though you seem confused." "You didn't address any of them but Bael." "Ah, yes. The trainees. The elves, they're trainees, Lady Potts," he said. "I do not address them unless their trainer asks me to personally. Only one of those lads will obtain the position left open by the retirement of one of our members. Best not to get their hopes up." He began walking up the walkway, Kathy scurrying to catch up. "Since we are now within the inner court, The rules of courtly etiquette shall apply. I shall call you Lady Potts, for instance, unless you shall wish and declare otherwise." "You could just call me Kathy," she murmured. "Truly." She gave him a no-duh look. "Very well, then, Kathy. I propose we make all haste to the king's manor, that we may have audience before he grows tired for the night." Take a moment here. I've got to catch up on chats. Okay. Actually, a cigarette does sound like a good idea. Well, not the greatest idea. I'm reading a book, so who knows? Damn prop. The pair walked briskly northwest along the cobblestone lane until they entered a circular courtyard, flanked on the west by an enormous stone building, and on the east by what looked like a coliseum. "What are these places?" Kathy asked, feeling chatty but nervous. She squinted at the eastern building, spotting a small path through overgrown shrubbery, which led back to several houses. On the west, no such path or houses were visible. "The building to our left is the barracks for the Royal Guard. Most of our members live there full time. When supplies are required, we send 3 or 4 of our own off to the outer city markets to make the necessary purchases for provision." Daguerreau pointed then to the more stately building. "That is the hall of the High Council. Beyond it lie the houses which are afforded for each councilman to make their own for the duration of their term in office. But all tasks of official business and voting take place within the hall." Daguerreau led Kathy through the courtyard, then into a narrow lane flanked on either side by tall shrubbery. The path twisted and turned several times, until they stood in yet another courtyard, disconnected, this one layered in stone tiles, and ringed by some rather unfriendly-looking creatures. Kathy would have loosed a shout at the sight of the Minotaur clomping toward them, if not for his armor and cloak, which identified him as a member of the Royal Guard. 11 of them total stood about, including 2 elves, 2 felons of a sleek frame, a dwarfish man in heavy black armor, a gnome actually, she would discover later, 3 Kenyan with the heads of Dobermans, what looked like a harpy, a reptilian humanoid, and the Minotaur. "Hail, Sir Daguerreau," the Minotaur rumbled, bowing low. His horns passed within inches of the High Knight's face. "I, Sir Garrus, give thee good welcome and congratulations on the success of thy mission." He stood back to his full height, a towering 8 feet at least. "Sir Bernick has been dispatched inside to tell the king of your imminent arrival." "Does she have the duty of messenger today?" Daguerreau asked. "She? Didn't he say Sir Barnick?" Kathy asked quietly. "All Royal Guard are referred to as Sir," Daguerreau quickly explained. "She does, Lordship," said Gareth. Damn it, my prop is sliding down here. "Very well, then. I bid you all good heart, comrades, but Sir Barnick is fleet of foot, and we mustn't be too far behind. Come, Kathy," he said, taking her by the hand. Together they raced past the guards to the front doors, which were already being pulled open by a pair of subdued elven men in fine servant's attire. The front entrance chamber to the king's manor epitomized class and wealth, almost to the point of vulgarity. But more than any of the lavish furniture or tapestries, more than the paintings in gold or silver-trimmed decor, what gripped Kathy's attention were the black wooden double doors directly opposite the entryway they stood within. Immense power fairly radiated from beyond them, and another royal guard stood to either side of those doors. They looked like giant frogmen, and Kathy could detect the bitter scent of vinegar coming off of them. This power I'm feeling, she rasped. Is it? Yes, said Dagoro. That is the power of King Ovin. Now, for right now, for tonight, that is where we're going to wrap. We're about, I'd say, 60% of the way through chapter 6, and we'll end up picking up there with the next installment. Dismiss that. This is one of those. This is one of the longer chapters. I take it this is the first one. The first of the books. Jacob, the first of the Kathy Potts novels. Is that what you mean? Because, yes, this is the first Kathy Potts novel. It's a Midwestern Yankee in King Ovin's court. Oh, yeah, this is one of the early installments. So this is I'm only on chapter 6. There's only 5 prior chapter installment break time, story time reads. I've only been doing this for a little over a week. And I had got the idea, I got the notion stuck in my head a few weeks back, about 2.5 weeks ago. I came to recognize that, my breaks at work tend to be around the same time each night. They do change, yes, on a day-to-day basis. Sometimes they're the same break time back to back 2 days in a row. The point being that effectively, I have my mid-shift break sometime each day, sometime between 7:45 and 8:30 will be the start of my break at work. And I get somewhere between 30 and 40 minutes. They give me a little leeway. So I figured I would use that time on these breaks to do some story live read presentations. What made me stop the series, Jake? I felt that I had told Kathy's story, that it was complete, because there's a Midwestern Yankee in King Ovin's court, and then there's the Chained One, and the third story is Kingdom No More. Now, Kathy shows up as a kind of cameo character in an associated kind of spin-off novel that I did called This is M Division. And my original game plan was to make M Division its own series and to continue sprawling off this urban fantasy story or worldscape. But after that first M Division novel, I figured I was done. I really I did not want to delve into this fictional realm anymore. If I was going to continue doing fantasy, I wanted to return to Tamalarian tales. Yes, Tech, in Kingdom No More, there is the Slayer. Which is it's a name given by the people of the Aether realm, the Aether plane, to a creature that arrives in order to dominate the dragons of the Aether plane. And those who do not abide by the Slayer's commands and designs, he summarily slaughters them and uses his control of the dragons to ruin bring absolute ruination to the realms of Aether Plane. If we get to Kingdom No More eventually through these presentations, or if you manage to jump ahead and read the book yourself, you'll recognize the Slayer. You'll know him, potentially, from my other works. And, these are older stories, and I'm not giving away any of the specifics, so I'll kind of go ahead and spoil it, though it's not much of a spoiler, because if you really want to know, we'll eventually get there. The Slayer is Kvothe. And surely, Jake, you know who Kvothe is. Yes, he can. And he often does. Not often. Just enough for me to really convey to people, this is something else. This thing is something other. Because Kvothe has also appeared in Tamilarian tales. Not many, just a couple. But he shows up. And he is Kvothe. But yeah, he's an unpleasant fellow, but man, I've had a good time working with him and using him over the years that I've been doing this. 34 novels. I've lost track of how many short stories total I've written over the years. Wrapped up into 4 or 5 different anthology collections. Kvothe crosses a lot of lines into areas where you wouldn't think he belongs, because if there is anything that Kvothe is known for, it's being a key component in the tales of Amelia City, where he belongs, where he is natural to the environment. An unnatural thing in its own nature is a beautiful horror to behold. And if you think he's nasty, just remember, I gotta live with him. Because he's in my head. But, yeah, we'll get there. But before we can get there, we'll have to get through the chapters of A Midwestern Yankee in King Ovin's Court, which is the story that I've been sharing here with you fine folks during the break time story times here on the Byron of Sidious Rumble and YouTube channels. I will be porting these streams. I'll figure out how to download them and re-upload them to my BitChute as well, so that folks can follow there. So that there are, that is presented on Rumble, backed up on BitChute. I only have these break time story times on my YouTube channel because I can just click a button here in the Rumble Studio app and simulcast to YouTube. Pretty easy. So, anyhow, I've got my radio back on. You can hear some of the chatter there. I gotta head back in here in a minute. But if you are interested, ladies and gentlemen, because I see I've been fluctuating between 7 and 11 live viewers here. For those of you who are new to the program, haven't checked it out before, or joining for the first time for this audiobook presentation, it will be continuing on tomorrow at roughly the same time. It fluctuates with my break time because, again, that fluctuates. And I don't find out when I'll have my breaks until I get here and get started at work. So sometime between 7:45 and 8:30 is when my break starts. And then for 30 to 40 minutes, I hop on here and we'll be reading from the book in question. If you would like to jump ahead and read the entire thing yourself, you could always head to Amazon.com or BarnesandNoble.com, Kobo Books, Thrift Books, anywhere online where books are available for sale, and look up Joshua T. Calkins' Truergy, and you can find the title of Midwestern Yankee in King Ovin's Court, and you can make a purchase of that paperback novel yourself and have access to the entirety of the story in one clean shot. But, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank you for tuning in. I'd like to thank you for listening, and for me taking breaks here and there to interact with the folks who were chit-chatting with me, Sarge and Jake, also known as Tech the Noob. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming in. Per normal, I am always grateful for the time that you choose to share with me. I am not owed your time. No storyteller is owed your time and attention. That's something that the folks in Hollywood could really stand to learn at this juncture. They're not owed an audience. The audience is owed your effort. They're owed a story. But they are only owed the story when you have got it right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. I ask that you take care of yourselves, and as always, keep reading.